when someone is properly grounded in life, they shouldn't have to look outside themselves for approval.
Welcome to Teddy's Universe. Hey, welcome to the universe. Hey, welcome to Teddy's Universe.
Thank you, Mr. Cena, for that wonderful motivational quote, man. I love how every John Cena promo since he's gone hell starts off with a motivational quote. Before he rips into the crowd and all of that, he tends to motivate you first. I love that. That's an awesome little niche I like about his gimmick right now. Anyways, we are here because we're going to talk about self-approval and why it is so crucial for your personal growth and development. But before we get into that, we are going to talk about something else that is crucial to your physical development. In the old previous podcast with my bro Carpe, we used to do something called the What the Fuck Facts, where we would just look up interesting facts and then we would say that on the podcast. And while I'm not necessarily going to be using that name, because I felt like that was a great name and a great time on a great podcast, so we'll leave that to be. I will be doing something very similar as far as speaking random facts about any and everything. That's very interesting. So today I'm gonna start that off with normally I'll probably do this towards the end of the podcast, but today I'm gonna go ahead and get it out the way since the topic is, I'm not gonna say it's a serious topic, but it's an important topic, I feel like, you know what I'm saying? So but did you know that your body has billions of blood vessels? You have up to, and this is depending on height, age, and all that other good stuff, up to about 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels in your body. If you took all the blood vessels out of your body and laid them in a straight line, you'd have enough blood vessels to wrap around the entire planet Earth about 4 times. Some of it might be a little less. Some of y'all might have 2, maybe 3. Again, it depends on your height, your weight, your age, genetics and all that type of stuff come into play. But you have enough blood vessels to, we'll say at a minimum, to wrap around Earth twice. And some people up to 4 times. That is phenomenal. That is amazing. You're basically a walking blood vessel. That is a look within, which in the TV world they would call this a segue, because we're going to slide right into the topic at hand, which is self-approval. Again, self-approval is a key instrument in personal growth and personal development, and it's probably the most important instrument in the mental health band, I would like to call it, because without it, a lot of things can go wrong, and with it, a lot of things can go right. So, first and foremost, self-approval is internal validation. It's you accepting yourself. It's your self-esteem. It's you feeling a certain way about yourself, whether it's, negative, positive. Hopefully it's positive. Generally positive affirmations about yourself, which your brain is basically a computer. Your brain understands it has a lot of work to do when it comes to running you. It knows it's a 24/7 job. Even when you're asleep, the brain is still working to pump blood, sending these connections to said blood vessels that we were just talking about, et cetera, et cetera. It knows it has a daunting, difficult job to do. So what your brain does is that it creates routines and patterns. And the routines and patterns make said job a little easier while it can focus on other things. And speaking of focus on other things, I'm just going to go ahead and give y'all another, random fun fact, because this does involve the brain and your body. So I was reading along with the blood vessel thing that it says that in theory, your nose is visible 24/7. However, your brain picks and chooses to ignore it sometimes. So if you paid attention, you could see your nose literally all day, every day. However, your brain won't allow you to focus on the fact that your nose is there 24/7. You'll go moments where you'll completely ignore the fact that you can just always see your nose. So I feel like that ties into the brain just tries to find ways to make things a little bit easier. So we're going to get into why self-approval really, really helps your brain out as far as overall mental health. External validation isn't evil. It isn't bad. However, you're basically giving up the power of your self-esteem. Your self-esteem is now coming down to what others think of you. And I'm not going to say others because it could be just one other person. So other think of you. Or if you're just a person that's a social person that likes to fit in with everybody or something like that, then you might tend to care about what multiple people think about you. This is probably more so prevalent with younger people than it is with people my age and older people. I mean, it's still people my age and older people who do seek validation from everybody, but for the most part, everybody pretty much knows what they are at this age, who they are, what they're going to be. We're not really going off potential anymore. You're going off of what you have at the table, what you bring to the table, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, I said bring to the table. I know some of y'all gonna get mad, but this ain't that conversation. We'll say that for another day. You're giving your power up, and if a person is not satisfied with you, you're gonna be disappointed in yourself. You're gonna be sad. You're gonna start to lose itself. You're gonna start to lose yourself or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And really not good. Really, really, really not good. It starts a downward spiral that is, I'm not going to say it's virtually impossible to get out of, but it takes a hell of a fight to get out of. So you need to always feed yourself like proper, positive self-approval affirmations. Always believing in yourself. If somebody else is making you feel like you're not good enough, eventually you have to just say hell with them. Especially if you know you are a solid person, a good person, you are good enough. Just because somebody doesn't appreciate that doesn't mean you're not a good person. It just means that some people out here don't appreciate good people. Some people out here don't appreciate the type of good person you are. There's different ways to be a good person. There's different ways to be husband material. There's different ways to be wife material. There's different ways to be a good coworker. There's different ways to be a bad coworker. Like, there's nothing like really set in stone. So it's multiple ways to be a good person. And just because you're good doesn't mean people are going to appreciate that. People are going to be pure with that. People are going to have the best interests at heart with that. No. I mean, there is no good without bad. There is no bad without good. So the same could be said is there's different types of bad. There's different types of good. Everybody doesn't appreciate the good. I think a lot of food is good. However, there's a lot of food that I think that's good that I won't eat. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, there's no problem with it. I just won't eat it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just life. That's just the way things shake down. That's just the way that things happen. And we really have to work on enhancing our mental and emotional well-being. Because when you do that, you reduce the natural stresses and anxiety that comes within your mind. I don't know about y'all, but for the last few years, I mean, I've been good. I want to say since about 2022-ish. I've been good, but before that, I used to struggle with anxiety. Mine was more, it was more scientific anxiety. I'm not going to get into that. If you know, you know. But if you don't, I'll get into that another day as well. It wasn't the natural, hey, I wish everybody would accept me. How do I get people to be on my side anxiety type of thing. But I did go through that portion when I was a kid. Moved to Maryland when I was about 8 years old. I want to say it was about 1997. I moved to Maryland. I moved to Forestville. And I wasn't an outside body before I moved to Maryland, but when I moved here, I started to transition into becoming like an outside kid, which is a kid that was basically always outside. Now, obviously, I wasn't outside every single day, and not at 8 years old. My mom would not let me, but I had a routine, had a pattern. She would allow me 3 days a week to go outside. So I used to pick Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so gradually, as more and more time went on, the more and more trust we built up, she would let me out more and more and more. Now, on these Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I was able to go outside for about, I want to say 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. 2 hours if my mom was in a good mood type shit. You know what I'm saying? But I was instantly aware that I was a super new kid on the block in a tight knit, not just a tight knit neighborhood, but a tight knit town, a tight knit city. I stuck out like a sore thumb, and it brought a lot of negative and unwanted attention. I was fighting like hell. I didn't know how to fight at the time. Again, I'm 8 years old at the time, so y'all gotta give me grace. You know what I'm saying? I did not know how to fight. I did not know how to defend myself. It was a bumpy ride to begin with. So naturally, you start seeking acceptance from this toxic ass environment that you basically are in. And as a kid, it's even more important because you're still learning like mentalities, you're still learning like character traits, personality traits. You're still like trying to carve out a person that you want to be or who you're going to become. But when you do stuff like this, you're going to be this person for the long haul more than likely. So whatever you're developing now, you're going to carry with you way into your adulthood, probably into your old. Like when you see people that are old and like bitter and old and miserable, you don't just really become that when you're old. It's kind of been manifesting your entire life in other little nuances. When you were younger, you probably were a little petty. You probably were a little miserable already, whether it came from heartbreak, whether it came from loss, from death. You didn't look at life the same, whether it came from you seeking validation and couldn't get it, whether it came from you needing support and couldn't get it from family, friends, etc., etc. It's a million reasons, and most of them aren't really your fault. It's just life being life that cause you to think and become that type of thing. Now, me, ever since I've been young, I've always been a happy-go-lucky person. People call me happy-go-lucky all the time. They still do to this day. I get called happy-go-lucky all the time. I never envisioned myself becoming like bitter, old, petty, hateful. But I understand why people get like that because life do be lifing. And there are moments where you're just like, you know what? Fuck all this happy shit. But you got to stand true on who you are. And a big reason I'm able to do that is because of self-approval. People closest to me know that I appreciate the validation. I appreciate the compliments. I appreciate all the positive affirmations, but I do not seek that from anybody outside of myself and God because I've already learned my lessons quite early on that when you give people those power, they don't tend to do well with it at all. You start to get manipulated. You start to be like a puppet on a string. You start to be so many things that will fast track you into losing yourself. You know what I mean? And I'm quite sure everybody's been through a scenario, maybe even multiple times in life, I know I have, where you lose yourself. And it takes, first of all, before I say what it even takes to get back to yourself, it takes a lot to even realize you lost yourself. Not to realize it, but to accept the fact that, damn, I lost myself. Like, this is not me. You know what I'm saying? You've been jumping through hoops for somebody, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's somebody you saw as a significant other. It might be a significant other. You know what I'm saying? You've been jumping through all these hoops, and you've gotten away from naturally what is you. And now, even though you have the approval or you have that relationship or you have that bond, you got that new job, now you can't even enjoy it because in order to get it, you had to be something you're not or something you're not comfortable being. You know what I mean? It didn't happen naturally. And now you can't enjoy it naturally because it's not natural. You know what I mean? So it really is like super important to work on the self-esteem thing and to try your hardest to just seek the approval from God and yourself. Pray, pray, pray for the strength, the energy, the resilience, because that's another thing it really takes. It really takes a lot of resilience, especially like when you lose yourself, to get back to yourself. People think it's just as simple as, I hear people say all the time, oh, pick up new hobbies, or what you used to love as a kid, go back to doing that. And it's like it's not really that simple, because a lot of things have happened since you were a kid. You know what I'm saying? When you were a kid, you didn't have responsibilities. I would hope not. I hope you weren't paying bills. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. We grew up in a different kind of era. We grew up in like a different environment where we did have to grow up rather fast, I would say. Like I said, I moved to Maryland when I was 8. I felt like I was grown probably at 12. I had grown responsibilities at 12. I was not fully, but there was 2 or 3 things that I was doing that I probably shouldn't have been doing until I was at least 18, 19. But again, another story for another day. We'll get into it. But getting all that experience out the way at such a young age, it's created a lot of resilience for me at the age I am now. I am 36 years old. I am old, y'all. Don't laugh. Whatever. I am definitely old. So you're talking 24 years from that point up until now, where I've just been collecting knowledge, collecting experience, processing it, and actually trying my best to apply it. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. No matter what the notion is, no matter what the thought process is in society, nobody's perfect. We all fuck up. We all make mistakes. We all bump our heads against the wall. Nobody really has this life thing figured out. We just really want the best for ourselves. And sometimes we just think that if I don't know that I'm doing a good job, I need to hear it from somebody else. I need to hear from somebody I like. I need to hear from somebody I love. I need to hear from somebody I'm in love with. I need to hear from somebody that I have the potential to be in love with. I need to hear that from somebody so somebody can let me know I'm doing this right. Instead of just believing in yourself that if I'm doing this right, I'm doing this right. I normally handle business regardless. This is going to turn out okay. And if not, you'll just correct the mistakes, assuming you're learning them. Because sometimes I will admit I make mistakes, and by the time I realize shit was a mistake, you are in the deep end. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are in the deep end type shit. But just realizing that you can fuck up, you can make mistakes, your confidence is going to be rattled. I'm a strong-minded person. I am probably one of the most strong-minded people. If you know me, I'm probably one of the most strong-minded people that you ever know in life. My confidence gets rattled. It does. Whether it's at work sometimes, whether it's dealing with family sometimes, whether it's dealing with like relationships and the lack thereof right now. Yes, your confidence gets rattled, because when you do believe in yourself, you have more expectations of yourself, and not meeting those expectations, it starts to make you think those negative thoughts like, hey, am I a failure? I used to think that so much. From 30 up until like 34, I literally thought my life was a complete failure. Like, I had nothing to show for nothing but a job. You know what I'm saying? Everything that I planned to do in life, I wasn't even close. But getting out of that funk, getting back to who you are, and actually believing in yourself, actually, developing these routines and patterns. Because like I said, that's your brain literally runs on systems. Anybody that doesn't know, I'm in the IT field, and I have to learn. I learned a lot about systems. and it's a lot of systems you guys probably aren't familiar with. So to name a couple that y'all probably are familiar with that y'all use on an everyday basis, systems like Microsoft, your Microsoft Office, your Microsoft Words and stuff like that. Windows, that's a system. You got your Windows 7, your Windows 8, 9, 10, 11, blah, blah, blah. Your brain is literally a system. And like I said earlier, it literally tries its best to make things a little easier. So it creates these patterns and routines that it could just write into your body's, hardware and go on about its day. That's why when people get like addicted to things, it's so difficult to beat like an addiction, because your brain has kind of wired it to you that, okay, you do this, you like doing this, you love doing this a lot, so obviously this is just your thing. Here you go. And it writes it off, and now it's on to the next thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's super important to feed yourself positivity. And I know it could be difficult. Like I said, I had a 4-year stretch. Imagine that. 4 years that started when I turned 30. Because I thought turning 30 was like my halfway point through life. I don't have nothing to show for nothing. I'm failing. I don't have a direction. And then I turned around, and year 35 was arguably the best year of my life. I accomplished so much. Now, it was some downside to it that came with all the good. But 35 was probably the most productive year of my life. So it gave me a new outlook on things. I don't even feel old. I don't feel old physically. I don't feel old mentally. I don't feel old spiritually. I feel great in the mind. You know what I'm saying? And it takes a lot to get to this point. It takes a lot to get to like having this kind of peace. And it takes a lot to be willing to stand up to people who often threaten your peace, no matter how close they are. Because you're going to have to get rid of like some people that you just don't want to get rid of, but they are a vital threat to either your subconscious mind, your regular mind, you know what I'm saying, your peace. They don't value you enough. They don't feed into the system that you're currently running. They fed into the old system, but you upgrade it. And when you upgrade, you buy a new iPhone 16, right? It's a different type of charger to charge the iPhone 16 than it was at an iPhone 11. The operating system's a little better, a little more current, a little revamped, a little more updated. So the old things are not going to work on the new things anymore. So you have to remove those old things. You know what I mean? And sometimes it'll break your heart, because sometimes, I've seen instances where people close to me, they had to cut their parents off. They got to cut their siblings off. They got to cut their best friends off. They had to leave a marriage. They had to do so many things, but you come first at the end of the day. Always, always, always. Now, you don't want to take this out of hand and become such a selfish person, or a super self-centered person where you think like the whole world revolves around you, or it has to revolve around you and things like that, because that will never be the case. What you want to do is you want to treat things, at least this is how I treat things. I treat things like space. Space has the sun, and yes, planets do revolve around the sun, but it does it in a natural way. The sun isn't forcing the planets to revolve around it. You know what I'm saying? So you can't force people to revolve around you. That's just not how it works. You know what I'm saying? In fact, the more you try to force that, the opposite effect that it's more than likely going to have, because people are rebellious, and you know what happens when you create friction. Doesn't really end up well. So what you want to do is surround yourself with people who revolve around you naturally. I'm saying you the center of attention, but I know with me and my siblings, it has to be something natural. It's going to be something natural. I know with me and my close friends, it's going to be something natural. We're not forcing nothing on a day-to-day basis. We're not forcing nothing on a week-to-week basis, month-to-month. When we're doing projects together, we're not forcing anything. It's hey, I think we should do this. Or, hey, I'm doing this. Can you help me with that? And it's either a cool, I got you, or nah, that's not really my style, but I can help out in this kind of way. You know what I'm saying? And nothing's never really forced. And when you don't have to force things like that and things like that come natural, that gives you confidence and resilience too, because now you know that it is people out here that you can naturally bond with and naturally build with, and you don't have to force things, or you don't have to wonder what things is, or is a person like. It's so many things that you're not really. I'm not even gonna really get into or whatever, but it's just so important. And another thing about self-approval is when it comes to having like better confidence in yourself, you tend to start making better decisions. Now, I can speak on this firsthand because the first half of my life and the back half of my life is literally two different lives. I used to be such a reckless decision maker. So reckless. So freaking reckless, dog. Like, was young when they whoever came up with that cliche young and dumb, they literally had to been talking about me, because I was young and I was super dumb, and I made some of the dumbest, stupidest decisions. I had good situations in my lap that I completely took for granted and didn't appreciate until years later when I really actually matured. And looking back on situations like, damn, I had a good situation and I completely fucked that up. I had this situation, I completely took that for granted. And it happens, it's life, it's normal. But realizing that a lot of it stemmed from me not being fully capable of believing in myself, it led me to make bad decisions. Because at the end of the day, I didn't care enough about myself to want better for myself. You know what I'm saying? But eventually you get to a point where you really get tired. Either physically, mentally, if not both, you really get tired. And once you get tired, one or two things are going to happen. You're either going to push yourself to make change, or you're going to mentally clock out from the world. I thought about mentally clocking out from the world, where you just kind of just go through the motions until you die or something like that. I'm going to just go to work every day. I'm not going to say nothing to nobody. But at the end of the day, that's just not who I was. Up until that point, I've really been like this super positive, super funny, super outgoing person, and I didn't want to lose that. Sometimes you do a little bit, but I didn't want that to be like a permanent change. You know what I'm saying? So you force yourself, at least I did, to make changes. But my changes had to come mentally, which takes a hell of a long time to get going. You know what I'm saying? It really takes a lot. Anything mental is such a fight. And I'm glad that nowadays, even though I feel like a lot of people take advantage of the movement, I'm glad nowadays people are talking about mental health a lot more. Because back then, talking about mental health was really like, you were really chalking a person up to just being weak. Whenever somebody said they had depression, anxiety, you would be like, oh, that person's just weak. You know what I'm saying? But now it's a really important thing to keep your mind right. You can do that by not criticizing yourself as much. Me personally, I criticize myself a lot. Super unhealthy. When I did talk to therapists, counselors and stuff like that, I criticize myself a unhealthy amount of times. I hold myself accountable so much. Even if I know a situation doesn't even involve me, it might involve me, but I know I had no stake in the outcome of a situation, I will still take full accountability for it, even though it's nothing I could have literally done. If I'm in a situation where I'm trying to talk to a woman or something and she completely doesn't like me, I will take accountability for her not liking me, even though I have no control over another person liking me or not. So, now my belief in that is when you hold yourself overly accountable, again, you're filing that into your brain is filing that into the system to be an accountable person. Because I feel like if you make excuses a lot, your brain's going to chalk that up as, all right, we're just an excuse maker. That's what we're going to do. That's going to be one of our character traits, and I don't like that. You know what I'm saying? So I'd rather just take the accountability, to keep the system intact, so to speak. But I have worked on these past couple of years on less self-criticism and just kind of enjoying the journey, whether I fuck up or not. Because even though I'm more mature, I'm more of a wise decision maker, I still fuck up a lot. It's life. We all fuck up a lot. Some people might not admit it. They got too much pride, ego, or they too shy to admit it. They don't want to seem like they probably got bullied or teased for fucking up when they were younger. They probably got whooped for being wrong when they were younger. Something that's giving them some type of trauma that they just won't admit that, they fuck up. Me, I fuck up all the time. Like, I know my guardian angel be like, what the hell? I know my sister look at me sometimes like, what the fuck? I know my mom looks at me sometimes like, what the hell, Eve? You know what I'm saying? Or whatever she chooses to call me. My mom is the only person in the world that like literally will call me a different name every time we talk. Like, one day I'll be Avery, one day I'm Baby, one day I am Teddy, one day I am Abe. Sometimes she even uses all the names in one day. You know what I'm saying? My mom has called me multiple names in the same conversation, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, so I know they look at me sometimes like, what the fuck? I know my friends be, I irritate the fuck out of my friends. I do. I will, if I had never gotten on your nerves, I don't think we're close friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, and vice versa. Like, it's just normal. You know what I mean? Like, there's no perfect relationship with anybody. You know what I mean? I can only imagine how God looks at me sometimes. So that goes without saying. But yeah, it reducing the self-criticism, increasing your self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is key. I feel like it could be a foundational piece for self-approval, because you have to be aware of a lot of things in order to even approve of something. Like, if I be like, okay, I noticed this right here. Well, I've had to have been aware of it. I've also had to have been aware of this happening before in order for me to, like, approve of it. You know what I'm saying? To know that this is something good that I can approve. Because if it was something bad, you wouldn't be approving of it. Unless it, tends to be about yourself, which is the point of this whole conversation. So it's a tricky slope for sure. And just giving yourself greater happiness and satisfaction overall. And that's I've been reaping these benefits over the past year, I'll say. My stress levels have been way down. I don't even deal with anxiety anymore. At the end of the day, if you're me personally, how I was looking at it, I felt like a failure. I had all these expectations and I wasn't meeting any of them. Now, normally what people do, I'm not going to say it's a cop-out or it's an easy way out, but normally what people do is they'll just get rid of all the expectations, and that way you can't be a failure because you're not expected to do nothing. You know what I'm saying? And if that works for you, then that works for you. But that's just not how I'm wired specifically. So when it came to me feeling like a failure, as we get ready to wrap this up right now, I just went back to the drawing board and just upped my skills. I just became better in all aspects of life, whether it was my personal life, trying not to be too strict anymore, trying not to be too literal, too serious, whether it's my professional life, leaving a job that was literally stringing me along for years. I gave so much to that job, most of my life almost to that job, to going to arguably one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not stuck here either. Always be willing to move on. Because sometimes situations change. And right now, like I said, I've had expectations these last handful of years. I've had goals and dreams that I'm so close to achieving. It's that I will say it gives me a little anxiety sometimes is being on the cusp of achieving like big goals that you set for yourself and big dreams that you have for yourself, and it going from being a pipe dream to that's probably never gonna happen to maybe this could happen. If I did this, this would at least put us in a stratosphere. To now where it's like, yo, I can really do this. Like this is possible. It's a surreal feeling. You know what I'm saying? So now, the more the more time that's passed and the more you accomplish, the more self approval you have. And now it's to a point where I'm like, you know what? I don't need another person to say that I'm a good person to know I'm a good person. I don't need that. I appreciate that, but I don't need that. I know I'm a good person. You know what I mean? And if a person doesn't appreciate that, then they just don't appreciate good people. Or like I said earlier, they don't appreciate the type of good person that I am. You know what I mean? And that's perfectly fine. I have no control over that. And even though it does hurt, you're going to be in your feelings sometimes. You're going to, be down and hopefully not out about it. It's life. That's another thing I'm processing. It's life. Mike, my brother Mike, shout out Mike. He gets on me all the time. Not, I can say get on me. But whenever I preach my new phrase that I've been preaching over the last 6, 7, 8 months, which is everything is temporary. That's why I really don't put much like stress into stuff. He really didn't like that at first. I guess he might be warming up to it now, but when I say everything is temporary, everything is literally temporary. When you win, it's temporary. You got to get ready for the next game. When you lose, it's temporary. You got to get ready for the next game. And if it's the end of the season, you get ready for next season. If you failed at something, you get ready to succeed at it again. You figure out a different strategy on how to carry things out, and you try to succeed and succeed and succeed. You keep busting your ass. That's all I know how to do. That's all I will continue to do. And the more you prepare is like my last piece. The more you prepare, it also builds up your confidence, which will give you more self-approval. Other than that, I felt like this is the conversation that I really just wanted to get off my chest. Self-approval is so important. It really, really is important. Mental health is important, and not to just be online talking about it, sharing memes and making statuses about it, but actually putting in the work to get to that point. Because when you get to that point, it's so worth the fight. And then you'll bust your ass to keep that feeling, like I've been doing. And you just have to remove any and everything, whether it's a person, a job, a place that gives you anxiety or that gives you self-doubt. You have to be willing to remove all of that. And if you remove that from the system, your brain is going to be like, hey, we got room for something. What you want to put here? And you keep feeding yourself positive affirmations and positive words. Your brain is going to slowly start to rewire itself like, hey, we're a positive person. Hey, I can do this. Hey, I don't need you to feed me this. I can do this automatically. You know what? Every day that you wake up, I'm going to make you randomly think about a motivational quote. You know what I'm saying? And so it's rather important. I hope y'all weren't bored to death hearing this, but I feel like this is really important to get off my chest. With that being said, I am going to end this like we started it. Quoting John and saying, when people are properly grounded in life, they don't need to look outside themselves for approval. I love that line. I love that line so much. Anyways, thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for listening. I really appreciate y'all. This is Teddy Blackmon, the Teddy Blackmon Chronicles, episode 3, talking about self-approval. And I am out of here.